Usually a lot of times the way things work out, Rudy, is quarterback and coach have to be on the same page. Otherwise, you have to either move on from one or the other. We've seen that drill all too many times. So Jerry Jones is getting simply impatient, and rightfully so. He's got a big $1 billion palace, and he wants to make sure that attendance doesn't go down and that his business not suffer because of it.
Well, and I think that continues to be the case there in Jerry's world, in the sense of he wants to be the general manager. I've said this on a few shows in regards to what needs to happen. And I think one of those is you take Jerry Jones out of being the general manager situation and to be that guy, to recognize that, what I'm doing is not working. What I'm trying to accomplish is not working. And it hasn't been working since 95. So let me just put that out there. And I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, that you don't want to hear this, but Dak Prescott's not worth the money that maybe he will get. Maybe. And that's a big maybe. And maybe on one day and not on any other day. So let's keep that in perspective. I don't think Dak Prescott is worth that kind of money. I understand his numbers don't indicate that. But when it comes to pressure situations and situational football, I just don't know if Dak Prescott can be that guy to get it done. They were playing catch up almost the entire time against the Eagles. Yeah, there were good plays here and there, but there was nothing consistent and dominating by Dak Prescott to even warrant thinking going into your very last game of the regular season whether or not he's worth the money that Jerry Jones may or may not pay him during the offseason. And then the bigger question is about Jason Garrett, as you alluded to, Scott, in the sense of where's he going to go? Who's going to take his place? There's a lot of question marks surrounding his Cowboys team right now. Then there are answers. And unfortunately, that's going to continue being the case until Jerry Jones decides to bow out of the general manager role and let somebody else take that he trusts. The problem is that Jerry Jones is not a very trusting person in the sense of giving someone that kind of power to make the decisions when it comes draft time. So I think Jerry's he's still stuck in that mode.
I'll just say this, Rudy, okay? Jerry Jones will probably bow out of the general manager's job when I collect my Social Security.
Gosh, he may even be when I collect Social Security, but that'd be a little. I'm just saying a little ways away here. I'm just throwing that out there. It continues to be the case in the Dallas Cowboys system. As long as Jerry Jones is acting general manager and owner, you're going to continue getting the same type of results you've had since '95. So let's hope Jerry Jones doesn't go on a tirade or call me on my phone and telling me to cool my jets or something weird like that. So back to the guys that are in the hunt, the teams that are in the hunt, the players that are in the hunt right now, more of a hunt from a mental standpoint. When I say from a mental standpoint, a lot of these teams, even the wild card round, as good as their numbers are, Seahawks 11-4, Eagles 8-7, the Vikings are 10-5, the Saints are 12-3, the Bills are 10-5, identical record with the Texans at 10-5, the Titans are 8-7, the Chiefs are 11-4. I have a question surrounding the Chiefs, but I think more of a question surrounds this coming weekend's projected game. At least from what we know, Steelers are taking on the non-Lamar Jackson, the non-Mark Ingram, who will be sitting during this game at M&T Stadium this Sunday. This is a must-win for the Steelers team. They went into the offseason and acquired Devlin Hodges. He was cut. He started the game, didn't do very good, and it just continues to be this roller coaster. Now, Mason Rudolph's out of the picture. Don't forget, they did sign Paxton Lynch, who's been on 3 NFL teams. One is a starter. We all know how that turned out. The second team, we all know how that turned out. And so I don't know that Paxton Lynch is a guy, but I know this much. Devlin Hodges is definitely not the guy for this role because of the lack of experience, because of the lack of. Now, I'm not going to sit here and state, I'm a diehard Steeler fan, but I'm very objective about this in the sense of Devlin Hodges is not going to be the guy in Pittsburgh moving forward except for tomorrow, which is the very last game. Why? Because Paxton Lynch, I don't think, has that winning mentality, and I think that he continues to show that he can't read defenses. He can't read his checkdowns. There's certain things and motions and his actions outside of being under center that disallows him from being a part of this contest. But one thing Mike Tomlin did say, obviously prior to Mason Rudolph getting hurt, and that kind of changed the dynamic and perspective of the entire conversation of who's going to start moving forward for the Steelers, is Devlin Hodges. Why? Because he's the only viable quarterback that the Steelers have. Now, for the record, and I said this yesterday, Ben Roethlisberger went on Twitter stating that he will be back next year. This isn't fake news. This isn't something I just made up in my basement or in my kitchen sink. Ben Roethlisberger will be back for next year, and he's going to contend for another Lombardi. Now, having Ben Roethlisberger is one thing. Not having him is why the Steelers are 8-7. Not the main reason, but one key reason. One of the few, I should say. Defensively, T.J. Watt named most valuable player for the Steelers within the organization. He's had a ton of tackles for loss. He's had sacks, forced fumbles, interceptions. The guy's been all over the place, and deservedly so for T.J. Watt. Now, his brother, as everybody should already know, has already made a bid to start for the Texans. He did have a pectoral tear that kept him out for the majority of the season this year. And as far as a rotation for somebody like J.J. Watt, how careful are the Texans going to be as they take on the Bills?
I would give the Texans maybe one win at the most. I don't think they've got enough firepower in terms of, getting through a team like the Ravens. Granted, I think they beat them. I think they played each other this year, right? These two teams. So, if not, they're going to get humble pie if all roads lead through Baltimore. There's no way. I'd give the Texans one win in the playoffs at the most. But for a team that, traded away Damian Clowney, that nobody really gave him a whole lot to work with, that's a pretty good year for Houston.
I think it's a really good year for Houston. If for some reason they can get him back, and I don't mean limit his time based on giving him so many minutes. I think based on his physicality and where he is on the field. Is he able to put the swim move together? Is his power move going to be enough? And is he going to feel worn out? You have to look at all these signs, and I don't think any of these signs indicate that he's going to be playing a whole lot. But I think when it comes to pressure downs, when it comes to goal line stances, you need all the bodies possible. And I think you're going to see a lot more J.J. Watt in regards to third and goal, fourth and goal, situational football like that. So I like the fact that he's coming back. Probably one of those giving characters that you're going to find in the NFL landscape today because of what happened last year or the year before that. So he's very focused, but he comes from a long line of giving people. T.J. Watt is no exception. His younger brother, who does a lot in the Pittsburgh community, and for all things, for all intents and purposes, he's the guy. I mean, he really is. He's the guy. He's a leader on that Steelers defense. T.J. Watt certainly the Steelers are going to need him massively. Let's talk a little bit more about this matchup because I want to kind of pull this into perspective. You're not going to see Lamar Jackson, as I mentioned earlier. You're not going to see Mark Ingram. Both guys will be sitting out. Are we going to see this RG3 magic, or is this going to be? I know we talked about Fitz tragic, and I know we talk about Fitz magic, and I understand all these nuances. Are we going to see a lot of RG3 and what he used to bring when he was with the Redskins? Does he bring it to Baltimore this weekend?
You know what? I'll say yes. I really will. This is an opportunity for this guy, Rudy, to go out there and audition for a lot of teams that he's deserving of another shot. So there'll be a degree of hunger inside of RG3. I'll go ahead and say yes.
I think so too. I've always enjoyed his style of play, but don't forget, being the guy on the road, and I mean on the road because he used his wheels in Washington. He got hit a lot. There were a lot of concussions. There were a lot of questions surrounding his ability to keep that ongoing fluidity outside of being under center, fluid outside of the pocket, not getting hit, not taking those hits. So that remains to be seen. This Steelers team is really hungry right now, and this is a must-win for them. But the Steelers need other teams to lose in order for them to even have a chance, just like last year. Here we go, repetitive method, what happened last year. Let's kind of switch gears here, but we're going to stay in the AFC because, and we were talking about this offline, and we were trying to have a podcast that didn't quite work out, but I had stated that in order for the Jacksonville Jaguars to do anything at all, anything, they need to get rid of Tom Coughlin, and they need to get rid of their head coach. Now, they did one of two things. They got rid of Tom Coughlin, which is probably the best thing they could have done. And my belief is, and I don't know this for a fact, I don't know the organization I've interviewed very few players from the Jaguars during my time. But I know this much, that for some reason, somehow, some way, all these NFLPA grievances that these Jaguar players were filing was because of Tom Coughlin. Is that going too far?
No, not at all. I think as I am more closer to the situation, we were out in Atlanta last weekend for the Falcons and the Jaguars game, and the reality is that with or without Tom Coughlin, Rudy, the Jaguars fell behind early, and Doug Marrone never recovered. The team did not look very good. So I don't care what anybody says about the hangover. And now all week long, Doug Marrone is apologizing to his fan base about the year that he had. You can't show any kind of vulnerability like that and look totally stupid. This guy looks like a beaten man is what he does. The general manager in flux. The only chance they have is that Shad Khan is loyal. Maybe Tom Coughlin was too hands-on. What do these two guys do going forward? Will that energize the fan base? Thought that bringing Blake Bortles, getting rid of him would do it. Bringing in Nick Foles, the only thing that happened there with Blake Bortles is not the scapegoat anymore. Nick Foles wasn't the hero, and Gardner Minshew got some valuable playing time, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are out of the playoffs. Go figure.
Well, I mean, you have to look at your front office, and of course, Khan did. I think he did the right thing. I think he went about everything that he has done so far for the benefit of the franchise. And I'm sorry, Tom Coughlin, but it just wasn't the system for him. He may have thought it was, and of course Khan did at one time. Otherwise, he would have never hired him. But I think when you look at the situation overall, Tom Coughlin, I just don't know. I mean, he has time in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. He's already won Super Bowls, and he's been a great head coach and so on. Does he have enough moving forward? Are there other teams that could use a Tom Coughlin right now in their system?
Absolutely not.
So no team in the NFL is going to give him an opportunity either as a general manager or head coaching position. Not one.
And I'll tell you why. Because of those NFL grievances by the PA are very serious allegations is what they are. You can't go ahead and do stuff like that. Rudy, you're at a time in sports. I'm talking about sports now, Rudy, where coaches and executives are being held to certain standards. And I'll throw a little curveball at you, okay, Rudy? Mike Babcock, who won a Stanley Cup with the Detroit Red Wings, they tried to get him to duplicate things in Toronto. That blew up in the league's face because of his conduct. And there's a lot of other NHL coaches that got let go because of certain professional standards. Everybody knows that Tom Coughlin is a hard-nosed demeanor. Does that work in today's NFL? I don't know. But this is not going to help him one bit. 73 years old. Is he tired? There's a lot of factors that really come into play. And I think that if anybody hires him, I can maybe see it 2 years down the road. But Shad Khan is the most patient individual on the planet. Patient, okay? And if he couldn't work for Shad Khan, then there's a problem, Rudy. There really is. So, I think Tom Coughlin's ways grew in, and the reputation will teams sign with the Jaguars, the free agents and so forth, the way the Jalen Ramsey thing blew up in their face, Dante Fowler, and the list goes on and on. You can't have these things mount up and think that Tom Coughlin's going to get another opportunity anytime soon. The Giants let him go for a reason, right? I mean, I don't know. Is there a team that you think he could latch on to?
I don't really think so. I think that Tom Coughlin is a guy who's spent as much time as he can in the NFL. And to be quite honest with you, his mentality and style of general managing, probably not what the Jaguars need. And I'm going to go on reach, and I'm actually going to follow this logic. I don't think a team, unless they are superiorly desperate, are going to look at Tom Coughlin. I'm not going to say it won't happen, because that would be that would be a fallacy. But I will say that if this team is in need of someone who can come in to reshape things in such a way as maybe a consultant, okay, perhaps. As the general manager, not going to happen. I don't see it. Look, like I said, Tom Coughlin has done his absolute best with what he's had, and for as long as he's been able to do it. But it's time to move on. Other guys knew when it was time to move on. Some people, like the great Mike Shanahan, wasn't given an opportunity. But I guarantee you, guys like Kim has already won a Super Bowl, who's already been there, done that, and not in a general manager capacity. I don't think that Doug Marrone is the guy for the job there in Jacksonville. He's walking on a very thin, fine line right now, to be quite honest with you. And I think that if you get someone in there like maybe a Mike McCarthy, who's been rumored to take over the head coaching position there in Carolina with the Panthers, maybe a guy like him would be very suitable for the Jacksonville Jaguars in that capacity. But I think that if Khan can take over those general manager duties to get this back on track and see where he's at by the end of next year, to know who he would look for and who he would trust to put in that position, is going to go farther for this Jacksonville franchise than I think other people are aware of. So we're gonna stick with that.
Well, all I can tell you is you're right. I agree with you. I don't think that Coughlin sniffs a jam job. Consultant's one thing, okay? It's a low-risk thing. You get another good football mind in the building, no problem. Okay, but there's been some serious damage, Rudy, to his reputation after what happened in Jacksonville. No two ways about it. And you're right. But I still think the Jacksonville job, Rudy, is a good job. I really do. And you have an owner who's patient, that doesn't meddle. I mean, so my question to you is this, okay, Rudy? Do you need a meddling owner or one that's more laid back? What do you think is the right formula for this whole thing when it comes to front office efficiency and continuity in the building? I'm asking you that question.
Well, it's just going to boil down to, are you a player's general manager? Are you going to work carefully with these guys? Are you going to get to know who they are? Or are you going to be a laid-back dictator? That's not going to work. That's not going to work. That is not how you become a successful GM in any sports organization, is by sitting back and allowing other people to do the work. You have to be intrinsic, get involved, understand who these guys are. Once you recognize players and you care about them and you show them that you do because of who you are as an individual, that comes along more genuine. They'll be willing to play for who this franchise is based upon their representation and their impression of you. So when you show that, when you exhibit that, when that exudes and comes from you, and being able to work together to create a more cohesive unit, which I don't believe Tom Coughlin did. I think it was him barking orders and making sure that Marrone did what he had to do because he said so. That's not the way to go about it. So you have to be able to understand what the front office is looking for, understand what Khan is looking for in this instance, of course, specifically, and recognize that you have to, as it's your job, to make sure that everybody's on the same page, doing what they need to do, what is a collective unit, collective wins, collective losses. Of course, nobody wants any of those, but it is what it is. It comes with the territory. How do you know you're going to win unless you lose? And I think that once this organization figures that out, they're going to come back to those heydays of having guys like Jalen Ramsey on the roster. And, of course, they're going to lose a few more before, or at least during the offseason.
Well, Jack Del Rio was a good coach for him. I think should Doug Marrone get fired, and he's one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. Players love him, but it's what you've done on the field that makes all the difference. You can't go out there and tell your fan base, I feel like I'll let you. You can't show signs of insecurity in this business. You can't. He won't land another head coaching job after that. So be fortunate to get a coordinator job after his tenure as head coach is over with in Jacksonville. I really believe that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Does loyalty take precedent over a massive change? Well, we'll know in a matter of days, won't we, Rudy?
Well, we're going to find out exactly what that means, because some players want to get out. I mean, you have the NBA where guys like Karl Anthony Towns wants to find his way out of the Knicks. Again, another uncomfortable situation. Another guy who just wants to find his way out, and if he whines enough, or if he's upset enough, or if he pokes enough at the bear's going to release him and call it a day. I mean, you have players in the NFL that are trying to do the very same thing. Whether or not it becomes a trend in the NFL is another story. But we're certainly going to find out who's going to stay and who's going to go. Speaking of staying, or let's just say another team, maybe he'll stay, maybe he won't. Steelers announced that they have signed former Ohio State quarterback J.T. Barrett to their practice squad. Very interesting signing. This guy was a free agent. He signed with the New Orleans Saints because he went undrafted in 2018. That's a warning sign number one. Waived by the Saints. Warning sign number two. Signed by the Seahawks. Then waived. That's another sign. I mean, how many signs do you need? What do the Steelers see in him? Now, before you answer that, I'm going to state this. He started 44 games in 4 seasons. He had 27 games over his final 2 seasons. He completed almost 65% of his passes, throwing for almost 3,100 yards, 35 touchdowns, and only 9 interceptions. He used his feet to rush for almost 800 yards and 12 touchdowns. What are the Steelers? What kind of message do you believe they're going to send to the rest of the quarterbacks on that roster, considering Mason Rudolph is out on the IR and Devlin Hodges is struggling under center?
Well, he's a mobile quarterback. He falls in line with what a lot of teams are doing. When you talk about mobile, athletic, we talk about Kyler Murray, right? Okay, with the Cardinals. We talk about RG3 before he got busted up. Lamar Jackson. Anytime you have these guys that are dual threats, you always want to give them an opportunity. And remember, Cordell Stewart made a good living being able to do a lot of things as a mobile quarterback, as an emergency quarterback, things like that. So, I've always said, Rudy, it's about the system. You try to get the best players that you can. You know if they're going to make a difference. And also, the kid's hungry to audition to prove to another team that he's worthy of being on a roster. So I think it's nothing but a good move for the Steelers. What do you got to lose? They could be playing into the playoffs. Otherwise, I still think Mike Tomlin should be a strong candidate to get Coach of the Year. But I look at that situation with J.T. Barrett as an everything to gain, nothing to lose. Just like I look at the J.J. Watt situation, like it's not quantity of snaps, it's quality. You're talking about simple logic in both applications.
Well, I don't know, but I know this. You bring J.T. Barrett in there, you're giving more mobility, but you're sending the sign to Devlin Hodges that he needs to straighten up under center or is going to be a quick one and done with his first NFL team. Now, he has enough film. Somebody out there is going to pick him up.
Right.
The question is who? And are they going to recognize that there are things that he needs to work on in order for him to be that guy moving forward? That remains to be seen. I like the signing. Late season stuff has me kind of worried. 3 other teams he signed that he was weighed by also has me worried. And then you have a safety in Trey Matthews signed to Steelers practice squad as well. Not a fan of Trey Matthews because I don't know a whole lot about him, but I did see J.T. Barrett play at The Ohio State University. And again, being weighed by 3 teams is a red flag to me, but I'm not a GM, and I don't own an NFL team, so we're going to find out exactly what their thought process is in regards to pulling a guy like him in there. A slew of what's going on this weekend. Packers take on the Lions. That's a meaningless game for the Packers. They've already clinched the NFC North, and they won that fair and squarely. Jets take on the Bills. That's an AFC East matchup. Bills have clinched a playoff spot, but they did not win the division. That belongs to the New England Patriots. So Bills take on the Jets. This is a dumpster fire game for the Patriots. They already won the AFC East as they take on the Dolphins. Vikings, who are in the playoffs, playing against the team that have so many question marks between Matt Nagy. It's just, man, I don't even know where to start with this. But the Vikings and the Bears, meaningless game for the Vikings. Chargers and Chiefs. Chargers are trying to be the spoilers. This is the AFC West matchup. This is probably my AFC game of the week outside of the Steelers and Ravens, only because the Steelers have more to lose, obviously, than the Chargers do. The Chiefs definitely have some questions defensively and also offensively. I take nothing away from Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, but this Charger team's looking at doing an upset, and they can very well do it. Browns and Bengals, this is more of the Browns have to win, but if Andy Dalton wants to keep his job next year, he has to beat the Browns. Dalton has shown a ton of inconsistencies. I've never been a fan of Andy Dalton. He reminds me of Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer reminds me of every other quarterback that's ever been in the Bengals system. Maybe even Collinsworth if you want to go there. Collinsworth had a good run, but not good enough. So Bengals, Browns, and then, of course, switching to the NFC, you have the Saints against the Panthers. This is a dumpster game because the Saints already clinched. But the Panthers are there to, make their life hard, maybe. I don't know. They still need to figure out what they're doing in Carolina, what they're going to do with Will Grier, what they're going to do with Kyle Allen. So many questions. Who's the head coach going to be? I think this is just a way to wrap up the season. They can't spoil anything at this point, but the Saints, I think, will go ahead and win this one. The Falcons-Buccaneers, interesting that the Buccaneers have played so poorly behind Jameis Winston. And I want to talk about this game for a minute because you have a quarterback in Matt Ryan who has shown glimpses, been to Super Bowl, understands what it takes to win, Yet this is not the team that we seen just a couple of years ago. They're a shell of themselves under Dan Quinn. I don't know that Dan Quinn will stay. Of course, Art Blank says completely different, that he's sticking with this guy no matter what. But then the other side of the ball, Bruce Arians brought in to be the quarterback whisperer, as it were, for Jameis Winston. And I don't know if you watched that post-game conference for Jameis Winston, but it just reminded me of a guy that I just knew for some reason did not have it in him to get anything done. And that post-game conference kind of solidified what I already knew. It's like, he can't be the guy to get it done. He's not going to be the guy to get it done. He can't throw the ball deep without getting intercepted. What do the Buccaneers do with Jameis Winston? He doesn't have a huge contract. He's a backup quarterback at best in the NFL. Does he stay in Buckland, or does he find himself somewhere else?
All right. First of all, I want to go back on a couple of points leading to where you're going, okay? Number one, the Packers game is more meaningful than you think, because the Packers are trying to get home field advantage in the NFC, because if all roads lead to Lambeau, bring out the hand warmers. It gets cold up there, number one. To your point here, Rudy, okay, RG3, we talked about him earlier. This is the best team he's ever been on. So, I'll be curious to see what he has with talent around. Now, to the point you just made, Andy Dalton, to me, if you put him on a good team, and I mean a good team, I think he's a good quarterback, and I still think he has a lot left in him. Jameis Winston is a puzzle. If you're ever watching a Batman and Robin, okay, you'll realize there's a Riddler involved. But I think there's anybody can straighten him out is Bruce Arians and Tom Moore. But again, that's interesting. I hate to use that he's like Brett Favre, he's a gunslinger, that it's feast or famine, because I think the Buccaneers have a lot of good weapons. But I think the linchpin here is really Bruce Arians. Can Bruce Arians handle him another year? And I do think Andy Dalton will land someplace else. There's a few quarterbacks in future shows, Rudy, that we should go ahead and talk about where they can land and to get fresh starts. I think that would be something we should target for during the off season. So if I were the Buccaneers, I would give the Arians and Tom Moore and Jameis Winston one more year. But I would also bring in Andy Dalton, or there's got to be another team out there that would bring in Andy Dalton. And then maybe a Phillip Rivers gets a fresh start somewhere. You just don't know, depending on the talent level you have around them.
Well, you've already named three quarterbacks I just don't care for. So, first of all, Jameis Winston is not Bruce Arians' guy. Okay, Bruce Arians knew that in advance. If he has any pull at all as a head coach, and I believe he does. If he does, he needs to get a quarterback. End of story. You just need to draft another quarterback, not keep accepting hand-me-downs or a guy who's going to spend 4 or 5 years in the same system and has done nothing but the same thing year in and year out. And that's for interceptions. You can't stay alive in the NFL by just being that guy. He reminds me of Jay Cutler. Guy gets paid more being on the sideline than he did on the bench. Are you serious? And then other quarterbacks are still making money. Brock Osweiler is retiring a multimillionaire. He has 2 teams paying him. Are you serious? You want to get into that conversation about why he shouldn't be there? Jameis Winston needs to go. End of story. Colts, Jaguars. This is a dumpster fire game. Not a whole lot going on here between these two. I'm not going to even elaborate on it. Eagles, the Giants. This is more about the Eagles needing to win this game, because if they don't and they lose to the G-Men, the Cowboys win, Cowboys are in, Eagles are out. End of story. Cardinals at Rams. This is about an implication in an NFC West game that has no implications. It's got zero to do with nothing. All you're trying to do is see what Kyler Murray is, if he can play, if he can't. If I were him and I were them, if I were the Cardinals organization, I would shelve him until the following season. Why? Because this is a meaningless game. The Rams are just going to win it for pride. They're going to have all their starters in there. They're going to have the overpaid golf under center. He may as well be. He's better off playing golf than being Jared Goff under center for the LA Rams. Just throwing that out there. Of course, my golf game's not as good, so he could probably beat me at an 8-hole SWIP. Steelers-Ravens is more about Steelers winning, but they need other teams to lose in order for them to get in. And same situation as it was last year, so no big news there. And, of course, Ravens aren't having any starters to speak of, at least not the main between Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson, as we mentioned here. This is Rudy Reyes, Scott Morganroth. We're getting close to wrapping up the show, but I want to get your thoughts about this Raiders-Broncos game. Why? It's an AFC West matchup. This is more of an implication as to whether or not the Raiders can get past Denver. Drew Lock has won more games this season than I think they were expecting him to. And I think right now when you look at Drew Lock, he's playing relatively well. Do the Broncos somehow walk away with a W?
Well, there's a lot of dysfunction going on out with the Raiders. I mean, will Derek Carr even be a Las Vegas Raider? Scary thought, isn't it? Las Vegas Raider. But, yeah, I don't know. You never know. I mean, Denver, Vic Fangio would like to see it end on a good note, like to see Drew Lock be able to gain some confidence. I don't think Denver has identified a quarterback, and they haven't had one since John Elway left, outside of Peyton Manning, of course. But, for Denver, it's something to build on. Is it Derek Carr's last rodeo with John Gruden? Well, everybody knows that John Gruden likes to go through a lot of quarterbacks, Rudy. So who knows? He did it in Tampa. He did it again. And, I guess I'll take a little thing from Gene Hackman and Hoosiers. Let's see what hand we've been dealt. A lot of coaches are going to find out what hand they've been dealt. And it's another opportunity to get one more game under their belt to see many of them prepare for next year. Is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, no,
who fits in.
Yeah, you're right. I think Carr could be seen his last days in Oakland as well. It's been the same story. It's been the same story for him. It's been the same story since he landed there. So I don't know that he's Gruden's guy. Yeah, so Gruden has a history of going through quarterbacks, but he won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay after the Oakland Raiders decided to cut him loose. That actually still speaks a lot. It speaks a huge volume for John Gruden. Whether or not he can get the guys looking for in the offseason is another story. Redskins and Cowboys. Cowboys need this game badly, just like the Eagles do. However, they're still going to be behind the eight ball. They need all kinds of other cards to fall into place before they even get inside of the playoffs. But they have to beat a Dwayne Haskins-less Washington Redskins team as he's been shelved for the season. You could see Case Keenum come in to replace him. I don't know that I like that very much because, again, Case Keenum reminds me of a Brock Osweiler, reminds me of a Paxton Lynch, reminds me of all these other guys that the Broncos have had that did not quite pan out. But for all intents and purposes, I think the Cowboys can get the win. Biggest question is, can they? Will they? Is Amari Cooper ready? Is that plantar fasciitis too much for him? They don't have Leighton Vander Esch. He's out with a neck issue. So a lot of question marks on this team, offensively as well as defensively. What do they do with Zeke? Do they put him in the slot? Is he fast enough? I don't think so. So this is more about them trying to win and other teams to lose. And, of course, the last game we're talking about here, 49ers at Seahawks. This is going to be a very interesting game. This is my NFC game of the week. Why? Because you have the 49ers trying to battle out to see who's going to win the NFC West. This is the game of the year for these two teams. They've met up earlier this season. And, of course, as you know, AFC, NFC teams will play each other once in their respective home and away at the other person's house. But this is more about the 49ers and their ability to win. They're having some injury issues. The Seahawks just re-added Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, back. He passed his physical. He's ready to go. I think what's more telling is that it was more about 15 seconds of fame, just as he did at the Super Bowl, saying, "I'm here so I don't get fined part deux." Was this all about nothing? Was this just Marshawn Lynch being Marshawn Lynch?
I don't know. This is everything to gain, nothing to lose situation with the Seahawks. You lose your top running back, so might as well bring him in. The guy obviously went in there for an unofficial visit, and he was in better shape than most people thought. I actually like the signing. Again, I'll go back to the fact that the guy felt he should have got the carry to win the Super Bowl, didn't. Anything you can do to fire yourself up mentally, unfinished business, why not do it? And Pete Carroll knows him, and he's liked there. I have no problem with the move. I think it's actually pretty good.
Well, we're gonna find out if he's gonna pull out a bag of Skittles in the end zone. If for some reason he finds a way to get through there. This is Rudy Reyes. Take no punches. Go through me a follow at RudeDog Reyes on Twitter. Any other shout outs you want to give there, Scott, before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with you this year, and I'm looking to see if we can build our brand next year, Rudy. I think there's no question when you have two sportscasters like us that know a lot, bring a lot to the table, energy. I don't feel there's a better podcast out there that brings in the combination of elements that we have. So just so everybody knows, you can reach me at Tribune South on Twitter, and on Facebook you can look for the South Florida Tribune. Please like the page, and you'll be able to find all of our updates. Rudy, promote. What are we at? Take No Punches on Twitter as well.
At Take No Punches, you got it. Everybody, throw us a follow. Check us out. Listen to us if you like it, love it, but never leave it. This is Rudy Reyes at Take No Punches. Scott, it's been great. Appreciate working with you. Look forward to more of these shows in the upcoming year. And if we don't talk about that, if we don't talk again during the remainder of this year, we're certainly going to do that. Next year, we're going to have a whole slew. We're just obviously not going to talk about the NFL, but that seems to be the hottest topic right now. We're going to kind of move around different areas. We're going to go in the NBA, talk about baseball. That's on the horizon as well.
Right.
And try to get into some hockey. Hockey. I call it hacky. Other people call it hockey. We're going to find out which one is which and who's in and who's out. Don't forget the playoffs are going to be coming up here next year in the NHL as well. See if I can get some guys out here. Maybe Pete Jensen will join me again on the show. I don't know. We'll find out. Lots of stuff in store. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Go throw us a follow at Take No Punches. Go throw Scott a follow because, well, that's the right thing to do. And throw me a follow as well.
Hey, listen, you know what? The next time I talk to you on here, I'll change ages. 4 days after Christmas, number 57 is right around the corner. But, had to get that plug in. I don't know whether I should be doing it or not. But, I do want to mention one thing. You talked about your golf game, about being what it is. Mine's non-existent after a couple of shoulder operations, neck and back. But that's okay. You can always watch it on TV if I don't fall asleep first. So, but nothing against the sport of golf.
Just golf. It's all it is golf. But anyway, thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Thank everybody for tuning in. Reshare, like, do whatever you got to do. Throw us a follow. Throw us a bone. But again, we take no punches. This is at Take No Punches. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you.
Happy New Year.